What's up, travelers? It's Eliz from Means to Travel, and I'm coming to you today from my brand new home office. I'm so excited. I don't think I've really mentioned this yet on this channel, but my husband and I moved a couple months ago, and so I've finally gotten back from all of the travel that we did this spring and was able to set up my camera in here, and I am really looking forward to hopefully having at least a more consistent background for you guys as I film videos in here, so yay! So without further ado, let's start chatting about the actual topic of this video, which is the differences that I noticed between my travel in China that I did recently and all of the other traveling abroad that I've done thus far. So I recently got back from an 11-day trip to China, which was actually my first ever trip to Asia, and I feel like I want to jump on camera real quick and talk to you about 10 things that I thought were differences that nobody really warned me about traveling to China versus a lot of other foreign cities. So hopefully you find this interesting too, and let's dive in. So the first thing that was different actually happened before we left for China, and that was during the visa application process at the Chinese consulate here in the US. And that's that our friend who we were staying with in China actually needed to write a letter of invitation formally saying that he was going to have us stay with him at his apartment in China. The interesting thing was that he also needed to include a photo of his passport, his address, and a signature on that letter. So we really needed to coordinate with our friend in advance in order to make sure that we were going to be able to have our visa accepted. If you are going to China and you're going to be staying at a hotel, the booking confirmation works as the letter, so you don't need the hotel owner or somebody at the hotel to write this for you, which is actually pretty great. The second thing is that compared to a lot of foreign cities, you can totally find empty sidewalks late at night when you're walking around. And that's not to say that they're unsafe, which I'll get to next, but when I asked my friend about this after returning from a bar at, I think it was like 1 in the morning on a Saturday in Shanghai and nobody was on the streets, my friend joked that people in China really like to sleep. And that brings me to the third thing, and that is that it's actually really safe in China. The street crime rate is super low. So basically, you're going to not need to worry about being pickpocketed or something like that. And my friend also explained to me that that has to do with a combination of likely two things. One of them is that Buddhism is the most common religion in China, and that religion really emphasizes respect for others. And then the other thing is that there's likely cameras everywhere kind of monitoring the population, making sure everything is secure. So a lot of people who would be street criminals are pretty deterred by that. The next thing is that they love foreigners. It was so funny because I got stopped a lot by Chinese people who most likely came in from different provinces that don't experience a lot of foreign tourists, and they were asking to take photos with me because I was actually the first real life white person that they had seen, which is so cool. And I love being able to bridge that connection between our countries and be kind and say yes and really make their day. I thought it was really special to be able to go to a city and have so many people be so happy that foreigners are taking a really keen interest in their culture. I find that in places like Europe or New York City, people are not necessarily as kind to tourists, so it was a really great, happy surprise to know that I was really welcomed in China. And the next two differences have to do with restaurants and your experience in a restaurant. So if you're a tea drinker, when I walk into a restaurant in China, I found that the two options that I normally had to choose from if I wanted to order tea were jasmine tea and green tea. And if I wanted to order iced tea, it was going to be sweetened. And so I typically strayed away from that because I felt like it would be less authentic. Now, with jasmine tea, that seems to kind of replace black tea on their menu because it's everywhere. Now, I shouldn't really say replace. I think it's actually a cultural difference. And if you're a tea drinker who is really used to drinking black tea in the US or in the UK, for example, then you should either bring that tea with you or be super open to trying a new type of tea, which I really love green tea, and I tried jasmine tea for the first time on this trip and thought it was delicious. So I encourage you to be really open about trying the different teas on the menu because they're really good. On top of that, the Chinese are really into loose leaf tea, and it takes a little bit of getting used to drinking it without a tea bag like the one in here. But it's actually making the tea more flavorful because it's really great at producing flavor within the water. And they take their tea really seriously, so making sure to respect that tea process and not asking for, say, a tea bag is going to be really important. The other thing that I noticed that was different about restaurants is that the dessert menu has sweets on them, but the sweets are definitely not sweet. So if you're very used to eating something like a chocolate lava cake after a meal, you are not going to find something like that there. The very popular dessert that our tour guide had me try that was pretty good was actually kind of a dumpling-like texture, or like a bao bun, if you're familiar. I'll put a picture of one up here so that way you can kind of see what I'm talking about. And inside there would be a red bean paste, and that red bean paste has a little bit of sweetness to it, but it's certainly not as sweet as like a jam. So something to try, I would say, because it's very popular as a dessert in China. But if you're going there with a sweet tooth, you might want to start adjusting in advance and eating fewer sweets, because you're probably not going to find as many there. And the next two items that I found were differences are actually at the hotel. So first and foremost is that the mattresses in China are much more firm. And when I did some online research about this, just to make sure that our experience wasn't somehow a coincidence, was that if you have a traditional Chinese hotel or are staying at, a house, you should probably expect to have a very firm mattress compared to what you're used to in more westernized countries. A way around that would be to do a lot of research in advance and figure out if there is an international hotel chain that prioritizes more westernized mattresses in their hotel. So that might be, for example, a Hyatt, a Hilton, a Marriott might have Western beds, but I don't know if that's necessarily something that I would go for in favor of a more authentic Chinese hotel, because I feel like that's the only trade-off that you would be experiencing, and I don't know if that's really worth trying out a hotel that you could stay at anywhere when you're in China. And another thing about the hotel is if you plan on getting a spa treatment while you're there, I would definitely ask a couple questions while you're booking to make sure it's exactly what you're expecting, because there could be differences within the treatments themselves. My husband and I got a massage at our hotel spa on the last night that we were there, and we ended up getting much closer to a deep tissue massage than a Swedish massage that we're used to when booking massages at hotels in lots of big cities. And it wasn't necessarily something that I hated, it was just far less relaxing during the massage than I was expecting. I joked with Derek afterwards that I wasn't sure at certain points if I was in pain, if I hated it, if I was being tickled. It was so, I don't know, foreign to me. But I had gotten a deep tissue massage once before, so that's what I'm comparing it closest to. Afterwards, though, I felt like my muscles just like melted and I was so relaxed. So it's just a different experience, and I think something to still try. Just be warned that massages can be different while you're there. And the next thing was that the Wi-Fi wasn't always free when you were there if you did not have cell phone service. So I went to China without an international phone plan, assuming that I was going to be able to access free Wi-Fi like what is typically available in a lot of foreign cities. And what I found interesting was that the user flow made it so I was not able to do so most of the time. So what I experienced was that I would try to log into the Wi-Fi and it would ask for my phone number, and that way they would be able to text me a code in order to access the Wi-Fi. And the issue is that I was trying to get Wi-Fi because I didn't have cell phone service to access the internet. So it was just kind of that funny, like, I don't know what to do next thing, but thankfully Derek had an international phone plan and we were able to use his the whole time. So I recommend making sure that you have access to cell phone service if you're going to China in the coming months or year. And that way, hopefully, you won't be in any sort of predicament where you don't have access to the internet or some of the local China apps that are really important to get in order to navigate China. And the last thing is something that I absolutely loved, and it's pretty different from in the US, but I think is so cool, and that's that women of pretty much any age in China were into selfies. And it didn't matter if they were 15 or 70, everywhere I went, I saw women taking selfies. And I asked our tour guide about this, and it's certainly part of the culture there. And selfies are so widespread, even in comparison to in America. So I thought that was really fascinating. And China clearly has women celebrating themselves and celebrating themselves traveling around. So I hope that you found all 10 of these differences really interesting. If you liked this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up below, and also feel free to leave a question in the comments if you have any, and I'll do my best to get to them. If you also want to subscribe to this channel, I create videos about taking meaningful trips, so please feel free to press the red subscribe button below as well so we can hang out more often. I hope this video is helpful to you all travelers. Cheers! Happy travels! Bye! Hey travelers, don't forget to subscribe and press that notification bell so you don't miss when I put out new and awesome travel videos.